Welcome to this financial feasibility study. In this study, we are looking at the financial feasibility around three projects on a specific flat. So the first option is renting an unfurnished apartment to a tenant using a rental agent. The second option is using Airbnb to rent the space out on a nightly rate for people who want to stay there for shorter stays. And then the third option is selling the apartment and just investing the money in a unit trust. So let's dive into option one. So we start our analysis by looking at the operational expenses of the first option. And so we have to find the management fee, the maintenance fee, the levies, and the tax. So the management fee is basically just 12% that we are paying to the rental agent to do all the admin for us and to figure out how to work with the tenant. Then the maintenance fees were just estimated and gradually incremented according to inflation. The levies and taxes were estimated based on historic data, and then we just calculated a total. So this slide basically just shows how we forecasted the tax, and this slide basically just shows the levy forecast. And these forecasts were then just used to estimate how much we will be paying in the future. And so then we end up with this table with our values for levies and taxes. So there are a few upfront costs that our owner will have to pay before she can actually rent the place out, like she'll have to fix a few things. And these costs total up to about 57,000 Rand. She will just retake her mortgage and add this value to the outstanding balance or principal amount, which is at this stage 400,000 Rand. So in the end, she will have a refinanced bond of 457,000 Rand that she will pay off over the next 20 years. And so when we look at the repayment of this loan, she pays about 58,000 Rand per year, and we can see the components of the repayment here, where we have the principal component and the interest component, where the interest component will be deducted from our income so that we can have a big tax benefit. Next, we have to look at how much she can actually make of renting this place on a yearly basis. So she can currently ask 7,900 Rand per month for the apartment, and this income was just incremented according to inflation to adjust for inflation. So on this slide, we look at our tax considerations for the cash flow. I would just like to point out that we do have a capital gains tax right at the end there, because she sells the house right at the end and makes a profit, therefore she has to pay capital gains tax. And then in the end, we end up with our nice little cash flow of our after tax over here that we can use in our financial feasibility study. And then we have our final cash flow for this option, and just pointing out again that we do have a massive inflow of cash right at the end because she was able to sell her house. Then when we look at the NPV of this project, we spread it over a few different options of NPVs from 10% to 20%. And then we have our different options right at the end there. And as you can see, it is quite positive, and this project is financially feasible. Now we will jump into option 2. In option 2, we are renting out our apartment using Airbnb. So we have a little service fee that we have to pay, which is about 3%. And we have a cleaning and maintenance fee. And once again, the levies and taxes were just estimated the same way that we estimated them in the beginning. And she also has to make a few additional payments right at the start. where she has to do a bit of maintenance and she has to furnish the apartment. And so this amounts to about 67,000 Rand. And in the end, she has to refinance her mortgage bond, and this amounts up to 467,000 Rand. Then we look at the loan payments and the components of this, where we can see we have the interest component and the principal components. After a bit of market research, we were able to determine that 700 Rand per evening is about the market standard for a 2-bedroom apartment like she has, and so we will be asking 700 Rand per evening. Then we considered how many days people will actually spend at this place, how many bookings will she have, and a good estimate according to some research is about 40% occupancy, which is about 146 days in a year. Then when we look at the tax considerations, we see once again that right at the end, she sells her place and she has to pay capital gains tax right at the end there. Now we have our final our final cash flow, where we can see that she has quite a lot of expenses, and then we consider the NPV of this project, and it's quite considerably lower than renting out the apartment on a yearly basis, even when we consider the amount of risk that she might have to take with people not renting and people maybe breaking things. So even though this project is very risky, it still doesn't create a very good present value compared to the first project. Okay, and let's jump into option 3. And so in this option, she sells her house for 920,000 Rand, where she has to pay the capital gains tax on this as well. And she takes the money that she makes of this, which is the total investment amount that she can make right down here after all the deductions that has to be made. She can invest this amount in a unit trust, and then this amounts to, when she invests it for 5 years at 10%, she can get, in the end, she can get about 720,000 Rand out of this investment. Then she can't just invest the money without paying any investor fees, and so this slide just shows how she will pay 2% investment fee to the investor, which amounts to these totals right over here. Then when we look at our tax considerations for this project, we can see that she paid capital gains tax when she sold the house at the beginning, because she made a 200,000 Rand profit on the place. And then once again, when she cashes out her investment right at the end, she also has to pay capital gains tax on that investment. Also want to point out that she has to pay tax on the interest that she makes every month or every year, and then in the end we end up with our nice after-tax cash flow right over here, which we can use to determine the financial feasibility. Then when we look at our final cash flow, just once again want to point out that we cashed out the investment right at the end, and therefore she has a nice big lump sum paying out right at the end. And when we consider the present value of this option, we can see that it is very high indeed. It's about 3 times the size of any of the other options. And so when we compare these 3 options, it seems really quite simple. We have a winner, and the winner is option 3. And so option 3 is even the safest option. So she can invest the money and she is sure that she will get some sort of return. And it's also, for her lifestyle where she already has a kid, it's also important that she can spend time with her, and just by investing the money, she doesn't have to spend so much time working around the apartment and administration and so on. So option 3 is the best option for this project. And then I would just like to give a special thanks to the LA Mansion in Pretoria, who was very kind to provide a lot of information with regards to the costs surrounding Airbnb, and their links are in the description down below. Thank you.